And once we go through the room, we'll also go online. Starting on my right.
Anthony Roberts, Town Manager, Huntersville, non-voting, alt member.
Mayor Christy Clark, Town of Huntersville, voting member.
Brian Welch, Mint Hill Town Manager, alternate.
Brad Simmons, Mayor, Town of Mint Hill, voting member.
David Phillips, Mayor of Pineville, voting member.
John Higdon, Mayor of Matthews, voting member. Rusty Knox, Mayor Davidson, voting member.
Lee Altman, County Commissioner at Large, voting member.
Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Bilaus, Mayor Charlotte, voting member.
Woody Washam, Mayor Cornelius, voting member.
Andrew Grant, Town Manager Cornelius, non-voting member.
Brad Thomas, City Attorney's Office.
Tony Lathrop, NCDOT Finance Chair and Division 10 Rep, voting member.
LJ Waslowski, City of Concord, non-voting member.
And do we have anyone online, Ms. Paul?
We're
Working on that. Okay. We'll recognize.
Spitzer.
Oh, Ryan, please introduce yourself. Thank you for being here. We'll recognize the people online once they come up, but we do have a quorum. So at this time, I will begin with our agenda, and we are going to start tonight with a moment of silence. On July 14th, a tragic incident occurred at the CTC. We lost one of our community members, Mr. George Brown, to suicide. In honor of that community member, as well as others in our community whom we've lost to similar struggles, please join me in observing a moment of silence now. I will now turn it over to Mr. Cagle to please share a bit more on what CATS is doing to support suicide prevention awareness.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So as you mentioned, during our break, there was a tragic incident with a citizen who committed suicide at the CTC. The FTA has a suicide awareness and prevention program. We will be utilizing that program to put up signage and other resources throughout the system, bus, rail, CTC, our facilities, giving people options should they seek, help to avoid or provide options for them if they're contemplating suicide, taking their own life.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the May 29th, 2024 summary of our minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Do we have anyone today for public comment?
No public comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. I will take a moment of personal privilege to recognize Mayor Woody Washam for his birthday today. Let's all give him a round of applause for another trip around the
I didn't think anybody knew, Lee.
We wish you a very, very happy, healthy year, and we'll do our best to, if you need to sneak out early, we will certainly understand. Let me put it that way.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And then I would also like to take a moment. I understand our representative from NCDOT has a statement he would like to make.
Thanks, Lee. I just wanted to, there's been discussion, I guess, in the media and in other places about BRT on Independence. And I wanted to just make a few comments about that. First, at a high level, that DOT is committed to partnering with the city to find multimodal solutions that work there, and we're always willing to talk about things like BRT. And I will say, as the board member for here, it's not too late for BRT to be part of those express lanes. There's possibilities for stations along there, and I can leave it at that at a high level, but I know there've been some statements that put out there that were maybe narrow and that might have been not quite in context. So as the board member, I just wanted to clarify that and say that so that BRT, work with the city to see how BRT would not be precluded from the middle of Independence.
Thank you. I'm certainly glad to hear that, as I know many in the community will be, and appreciate you bringing that forward tonight. All right, at this time, we will turn to the Interim Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Cagle.
Yes, thank you. So starting with the monthly statistics, they start on page 17 of your binder. Just a note, we have 2 months of reporting due to the break that we had. So the first summary that you have on page 17 is the July summary of June statistics. Right? So each month when we present in July or in August, we're presenting statistics from the previous month. So in June, there were incidents involving buses. We had 4 vehicle accidents and 2 assaults. These incidents led to an elevated number of reportable injuries. Total reportable injuries for the month was 16. But again, I'll remind everyone, frequently when we see a spike in reportable injuries, that is usually indicative of a bus accident. A bus was involved in some type of accident, and the bus had numerous passengers on board. And so they, when that happens, if they have reported injuries or they request medical attention, then we report that as a reportable injury. We also had a bus that sustained damage to its windows after a tractor trailer had struck and pulled a cable into the path of the bus, again leading to some reportable injuries. And we had a fatality reported for June. This incident occurred after a private vehicle merged into an oncoming traffic lane and did not see a motorcycle. So they pulled into the path of the motorcycle struck the private vehicle, and then the motorcycle struck the bus. So a bus was involved, but it was sort of not directly involved in the accident, but that is still a reportable fatality in the system. Unfortunately, the motorcycle rider did not survive the accident. On-time performance, I think you'll recall that we have started to report our OTP, or on-time performance, as we started to see stabilization in missed trips. We then wanted to start focusing on OTP. Generally speaking, industry standard in this, you'd like it to be 85% or higher. We are not at that level. We are making improvements. We were at 80% OTP of bus service in June, and that's really attributable to 17% of late buses with 3% early. We judge OTP on both sides of the trip. It needs to be on time, not early or late. So we're still at 80%. That is an improvement from the month previous, but we continue to work on it. We have developed a work group really to look at all elements that lead to OTP, both with our planning group and with our bus operations group, so that we expect to start seeing continued improvement in this measure. Total system ridership increased by 4.7%. Now, I will note that is good. An increase is always good. That's a little bit smaller than we've seen in some months. And one of the factors for that was during the month of June, we had our rail shutdown. And so one weekend in June, the Blue Line and Gold Line were shut down for extended maintenance and observation. They did an inspection of the tracks and have planned maintenance during those shutdowns. So that did affect the ridership numbers. We did not have a shutdown the previous year in June. The sales tax report is on page, I will skip back to it, is on page, now I don't see a page number, hold on, page 31. So again, sales taxes are tracking with our budget slightly ahead of the budget. And so we're pleased by that, but basically in line and slightly above our budget. Pages 32, 33, and 34 are just inclusion in the packet of the correspondences that we sent out over the month to the MTC. Page 35 is the official letter from the FTA related to the financial management oversight, full scope systems review that we had completed and we have reported on to the MTC. However, we did not have the final letter, so it is included in this packet for members of the MTC to have. Moving to page 37, the August 2024 summary. So again, August summarizing July statistics. In July, there were 3 vehicle accidents and 1 fatality. Again, we took a moment of silence earlier in the agenda. The fatality is attributable to the suicide that occurred at CTC. In STS, we had 1 incident involving a STS paratransit vehicle. It sideswiped a parked vehicle. However, no injuries were reported, but that is a preventable accident. There were also 4 passenger injuries in July due to slip and falls that occurred as passengers were walking either to or from their residences, again with paratransit. So if a passenger is making their way either to the vehicle or back to their front door, again, there was a slip and fall. There were 4 slip and falls, and those are reportable injuries for the system. In the rail division, there were no incidents reported in July. On-time performance in July, this is good in that it rose to 83% in July. Bus services were on time 83%, 14% was attributable to late trips, and 3% attributable to early arrivals. Total system ridership increased by 11.6%. Again, a good increase across the system, and we're happy to see that. Individually, local bus was up 13%, local express 16%, regional express just under 12%, community circulators at 7.8%, STS at 7%, van pool at 3.9% decrease. The blue line had a 9.3% increase, and the gold line had an 8.7% increase. Again, I will point out the gold line, we increased or reduced the headways, the running times on that from 30 minutes to 20 minutes several months ago, and we have continued to see increase in ridership in the gold line compared to probably 6 months ago when we were consistently seeing decreases in ridership in the gold line. So again, we see that as a positive outcome, and really shows the cause and effect, the relationship with frequency when it comes to transit. Moving back to page 50 is the revenue, the sales tax report. Again, showing on track for the projections. We do anticipate ending the year slightly over the budget, and as we now are rolling into the current fiscal year, we will start to provide reporting on the current fiscal year, but we feel confident that we're going to hit and exceed our revenue projections from Article 43 sales taxes for the completion of the year. With that, I will pause for any questions.
Questions in the room? Okay, I have one. On page 38, it looks like in the lower right graph that the system reliability incidents for the month of July were almost double the previous month, and I'm wondering what happened with that.
Yeah, so the system reliability statistics are really about breakdowns, unexpected road service when a bus is out in the field and needs to be towed back in. So we can provide you more specific detail, but again, these are just generally speaking a variety of breakdowns that occur in the field. These numbers can fluctuate, and so we can get some more information on what exactly drove that up. I will say this is the one category where we have consistently in the past not met our metric due to the age of the fleet. We are receiving new buses, so we're seeing that metric come down, but we still have numerous significantly old vehicles in the fleet, and that influences the system reliability.
Of the bus, how many buses did you order recently, and when are they coming online?
We ordered, I believe we put in an order for approximately 70 buses.
And we have several that we're ready to put into service. We're working through the updating process, and then we'll have, I think we have 30 on site that will be ready to put into service, and then we'll have another 40 that will start delivery in the later part of this year and then early into next year, and should have them all into service by this time.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. Then we will turn to our next agenda item, which is an informational item on microtransit by Jason Lawrence.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Jason Lawrence, Chief Planning Officer with CATS. I'm looking forward to give you all an update on microtransit, but also an update on some service changes that we're looking at proposing for the Village Rider services, routes 97, 98, 99, as well as the Route 290. So a number of years ago, back in May of 2022, this body adopted a comprehensive strategy to improve our bus network called Envision My Ride. We had done a number of outreach and studies over the years. It landed with a conclusion with recommendations to this body of high-frequency routes, mobility hubs, and microtransit, a zone-based service that we are proposing to implement throughout the county. Since then, we have been working to implement that plan by developing priority treatments for some of our bus stops, but also developing a bus stop capital program that we're starting to see rolling out throughout the county. Also in that, we felt that there was an opportunity to look at more intensive efforts around operational efficiency. You heard Mr. Cagle talk about on-time performance. We're putting all that together, updating the Vision My Ride plan, looking at on-time performance, implementing things like microtransit, and framing that under the umbrella of a better bus. So, going forward, we'll be talking to you more about all the things that we're doing around the bus program and focusing on these three overarching goals, which are improving operational efficiency, developing service implementation strategies. So as we look to you about near-term improvements for service in upcoming fiscal years, that will be a part of the budget process, but also how we enhance the customer experience through things like microtransit and bus stop improvements. Running parallel to that effort is a comprehensive fare study that will be providing more updates in the next year. We're doing runtime analysis to improve our on-time improvements, but also the microtransit rollout, which was the majority of what I'll be talking with you all today. The project timeline, the study timeline for the Better Bus effort is to begin the dialogue with the community. We've started that in earnest earlier this summer. We are starting to do public outreach for our microtransit. We started that this week. We'll be taking some of that feedback this fall and then coming back to you all with an update to the Envision My Ride plan under the Better Bus effort to provide updates to fold into our future system planning work. Sorry, guys, this. You got it? Okay, thank you, Paulus. I'm going to put this over here out of my hands. Thank you. So next slide, please. Thank you. And go to the next one. Thank you, Paulus. So we've talked with you a number of times about microtransit, and we thought it'd be useful just to kind of reframe with you all, what is microtransit? There's been a lot of discussion about that. It's being implemented in places across the country. In fact, our neighbors to the west, Gastonia, had just launched a microtransit effort where they replaced their entire fixed route service and with a company called Via. So on-demand shared ride transit service, it provides that important first last mile connections. We feel it's not necessarily a total replacement for fixed route, but we feel it's an opportunity to provide connections to fixed route service and to rail services. It operates within a designated zone or boundary, and it uses smaller transit vehicles. So vans or smaller types of vehicles that can traverse a neighborhood more effectively than, say, a 30 or 40-foot bus. Most times, mobile devices are used to plan, pay, and book trips, but you do have the opportunity to also call in for your trips if you don't have mobile devices. And we are seeing this being deployed across many places across the country, places like in Dallas and Kansas City, Denver, Colorado, and of course to our neighbors in North Carolina. Next slide. So how do you use that? It's from a passenger access standpoint. It's more of a point-to-point service, so maybe not necessarily directly from your house, but to a destination. But think of it more in the curb-to-curb space. It's a mix of physical and virtual bus stops, so actual bus stop locations that we're familiar with, but also virtual stops that have been mapped out through a software provider. It does allow same-day bookings, and the way our approach to microtransit is that those same-day bookings would occur within the CAS Pass app, or you would be able to use the call center. Next slide. So in the zone that we would like to implement first for microtransit, we are targeting the communities north of Charlotte, Cornelius, Huntersville, and Davidson, primarily along the fixed route services that are operating there today called the Village Riders. It's routes 97, 98, 99, as well as the route 290. We are proposing a phasing out of these services with a replacement of the microtransit service. Currently today, the Village Rider routes operate every 60 minutes. Those routes average 4 to 6 passengers per trip, and they do provide today currently a deviated service 3/4 of a mile from the route. So today, an individual within the zone indicated by the dark line can call for pickup within that zone. The day before, our operators will go out and make sure that buses can make all the turns within that community, and if that is able to occur, then we will do that deviated trip on the next day. But it must be, as stated, must be pre-approved by our operations department. Route 290 currently operates on the weekday service and really serves as a connecting service to the 77X, which serves downtown Davidson, and it averages about 3 passengers per hour currently. Next slide. So in order to launch a microtransit service, our approach, there's different ways that agencies can deliver microtransit services. It can be what's called self-performed, meaning that we would currently operate it with our existing resources, or you can put this out as a turnkey service for a service provider to come in and operate the service. That is the path that we took, and we did issue a request for proposals in April of this year. We did receive 4 responses to do that turnkey service. And through a competitive and evaluation process, the proposal from MV Transportation with Spare Labs is a software provider that we'll be using, and My Little Helper, a certified MBE within our community, felt best met the mobility needs in terms of qualifications, experience, cost, and responsiveness to what we asked for in the RFP. So in the turnkey model situation, they will train and hire operators and provide vehicles to operate the service, as well as maintain, and it will also offer call center support for those individuals that either don't have internet access or mobile devices to plan for their microtransit trip. Next slide.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, sir.
One thing I want to emphasize on this slide, MV Transportation has deep experience in transit in all different modes, including microtransit. But I do think it's important to just underline one of the things about their proposal that we really, really do value on this is that they have partnered in a very significant way with My Little Helper, who is a local MBE business. And we think that is very, very important as we looked at the proposal. So I did want to underline that and stress that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brent, for that clarification. Next slide. So as we look to roll out this service, a contract will be approved on September 9th. I think what's For us, what it will be help us with future flexibility. We will enter a contract with MV Transit for the turnkey service, but also into a contract with Spare Labs. So as we look to deploy additional microtransit zones, we'll have the maximum flexibility to do that either with another contractor, with MV, or with doing it ourselves. And so we feel that will provide us with the most opportunity to look at microtransit into the future. We are targeting an early 2025 implementation with service throughout 7 days a week. We are proposing a local bus fare for this service, so $2.20. And so currently today, the Village Rider service is 90 cents. And we are working with the community through a dialogue, through our public meetings. We are doing ride-alongs throughout the month of September to understand how are people currently using the Village Rider service. Many of our Village Rider customers transfer between routes. And so the way they use the service, they don't typically travel all within, say, the town of Davison or town of Cornelius or town of Huntersville. They are traveling up and down the corridor. Say if you're a student at Davison College, you want to go to the Walmart, that's a multiple transfer trip for that individual. Now, that is 90 cents because we do offer free transfers. The way microtransit works, currently conceived, is that with the adopted map, we had 2 zones on the map, primarily Davison and Cornelius, and then one in Huntersville. If we kept that as the concept for this service, an individual would have to plan their trip in Davison and Cornelius. Once they left the zone, they would plan their next portion of their trip to go to the rest of their distance. So we feel from a customer experience standpoint and what we're proposing to the public is that we make that a single zone from the town of Davison all the way to the south of Huntersville. And in that space, we feel that a $2.20 on-demand service with a 30-minute pickup window is an appropriate level of fare for that, and we will be proposing that with the public and continue that dialogue. I also mentioned that if, at 90 cents covers an individual's travel from Village Rider to Village Rider, but if they were to transfer to, say, the Route 7 at Brighton Town Center or the Route 59, they would have to pay the upcharge to the $2.20. Or if they were to transfer to an express route, they would have to pay for the upcharge to that service. So as we get a better understanding of how our customers exactly use that, we may have a better understanding of what the true impact to the cost change, what that is. But keep in mind, we'll implement this service in early 2025, and we are currently proposing for Village Rider and 290 to be phased out in June of 2025. So there will be an overlap of service during that time period.
Yeah. Mr. Lawrence, I would like to impress upon this, and maybe it's just me who didn't understand this, but if I didn't understand it, maybe there are others in the room. When you think about the Village Rider, the 97, 98, and 99, how they work today, if you were to board the Huntersville Village Rider going to Davidson, you would board the 97 and ride to the connection point for the 98. You get off the 97 and you'd wait for the 98. Then you'd ride the 98 to the connection point to the 99, and you get off the 98 and wait for the 99. And then eventually you'd get to your location. And with 1 hour service, if you miss a connection, you've got a few minutes to wait. I did not know that. Admittedly, when I found out, I thought that's a tough way to ride the Village Rider, especially considering the connectivity that already exists, right? People move between Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson on a daily basis routinely. So one thing, as Mr. Lawrence said, this is a bit higher fare, but this will be 30-minute service, and there is not that, if you're going from Huntersville to Davidson, you go straight to your location, or vice versa. There's none of the get out of one car just to wait for the next car to come pick you up. And we think that's really important from a customer satisfaction and convenience standpoint. But we also understand that by creating that bigger single zone, we feel like it's important to sort of line that up with the standard local bus fare.
Thank you. Next slide. So in order to really gauge where the public is on understanding microtransit or the changes to these routes. We are conducting public engagement that started this week. We were just out at the Huntersville Gateway Park and Ride last night to meet with Village Rider customers as well as express customers, because part of this effort is to better understand not only how to implement microtransit, transition some riders over to microtransit, but also look at where are some service improvements that we can make for the express routes within that corridor. Because if we get more people on microtransit, we may get more individuals wanting to take microtransit to our express routes. And so we do think that will be a unique opportunity that we'll be exploring. We will also be doing a Title VI service equity analysis. Those are these analyses we have brought to you all for approval. So we will be looking at the population around the bus stops along the Village Rider, gaining an understanding how people are using the service, and then determine what level of impacts are occurring through this proposed service change. We're also looking at the Route 47X. It's not a part of the microtransit conversation, but it's in the same general area. The Route 47X is the Metro Atlanta Greenhouse route that leaves from the J.W. Clay Boulevard station, goes over to the greenhouses there in Huntersville. We think there may be some more better suited vehicle options for that community, and be looking at potentially van pool service for that to see if there's opportunities to implement something different for that employment base. We'll also be doing direct rider engagement to educate and get input on the microtransit. So we'll be riding with along the Village Riders and seeing where people are getting on, talking to customers, having them fill out surveys to really get a better understanding how they currently use the service, but also what service needs are not being met and get a better understanding of that. A few weeks ago, we went out to the North Met Connect group, a group that was convened in the town of Huntersville for nonprofits up and down the 77 corridor, and a really great conversation with them. And we'll be meeting with more stakeholder groups like that to better understand populations that service needs may not be met with the current Village Rider services. And you can see on the screen there the various outreaches that will be occurring throughout August and into September. We do have a town hall meeting tomorrow night, a public meeting at the Davison Town Hall from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. to have a presentation and really launch the conversation around microtransit with the community. Next slide. So in identification of microtransit stops, there's been a lot of conversation around bus stops, around physical bus stops. So part of the conversation for microtransit is to understand that not all stops may need to be an actual physical pole in the ground or a physical sign. So a part of our analysis will first look at where are the highest ridership stops today, looking at park and rides, where places where microtransit can meet with other services, looking at key destinations like the Ada Jenkins Center or the Brighton Town Center, looking where shopping and employment exist. But virtual stops are a bit different. So we'll be working with a software provider to go in this identified zone to better understand where are accessible locations and where are possibilities for additional stops. And some of those locations will be in places where a 40-foot bus never could access, but a smaller vehicle could. And through that effort, we'll also be evaluating some bus stop consolidations. If there's a stop that has low ridership, it's not very accessible, where a virtual stop could serve it better in the same area, we would look to remove those stops. And on the next slide, you can get a sense of what I'm talking about, what it means when I talk about virtual stops. Next slide. Thank you. So what is a virtual stop? It's a defined pickup and drop off to where customers are and where they want to go. So on the top part of the screen, that's an existing stop for the Village Rider. It's on Sanford Road. You can see the condition of the roadway there. It's not very pedestrian accessible. There's no sidewalk. On the other side of the street would be what we call like probably the sister stop, so the stop for the person to go in the opposite direction. But the person that gets off at that stop today is more than likely trying to get to Brookdale Village. And currently that is not the best walking experience. So through the microtransit identification of virtual stops, we would be identifying locations like Brookdale for the drop-off and the pickup, rather than having somebody get off on Sanford Road. So this will be a comprehensive review of all the stops within those communities to really understand where are the stops where people are trying to get versus putting the stops where only a 40-foot bus can go. So we're really excited about that opportunity to align the service needs. Next slide. Thank you. So we doing public engagement starting in August and September, but we'll be doing engagement. We're starting early in this process. We're implementing microtransit in early 2025. The proposed phase elimination of Village Rider and 290 in June of 2025. So we'll be doing additional outreach and stakeholder discussions throughout this year into the next. And through that, we'll refine the zone boundaries, making sure that we've got the zone in the right geography. Right now, it's a pretty narrow zone from Davidson to Huntersville, but should it include places like North Lake Mall or other actual locations that we make sure the zone includes. We also think this is a great opportunity to engage our express customers to better improve those schedules. And of course, we'll be doing a marketing campaign for the launch of this. And then I'll close out with something that I think that is a program that we'll be spending a lot more energy on over the next year called travel training. So travel training is, and particularly for microtransit on the next slide, travel training will be key to the engagement with the community. Next slide, please. So travel training program sounds exactly what it is, helping people understand how to use the services. Now, it's one thing to understand how to use like a local bus, go to a bus stop, be there a few minutes before your bus arrives, pay your fare either through a mobile device or through cash on the bus. But microtransit's very different. We're going to have to teach people how to use, on-demand services. If they don't have a mobile device, how to call in. And once you call in for that service, where should you go to stand and wait for that service? And so we'll be doing, with our public engagement, working with our local nonprofits, working with the community to set up travel training programs that can be virtual or they can be in person as well. So we're excited to really ramp up our travel training program as it relates to microtransit. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think Mayor Knox was waiting, and then Mayor Higdon.
So this is it's a pretty good segue, Jason. About 4 years ago, myself, Mayor Washam, and at the time, Mayor Annarella from Huntersville kicked off the 77X, where we came to Charlotte, and then COVID happened. Yeah. And so we, in reinvigorating that, Hope Wright, who's the one of the managers with Sustain Charlotte, along with Andre Phillips, who is a sustainability scholar at Davidson College, Kayla Kovic, our sustainability director in Davidson, and several other enthusiastic individuals got up at 7:30 one morning and caught the express bus in Davidson to come to downtown Charlotte, just to show people how easy it was to navigate that and how important it was to know that that entity is still alive and viable. And it was great. Unfortunately, for those in Davidson, we rode the 77X down here and had to take a lift back to Davidson because we weren't going to try to navigate a bus back up, and all of us had to go back to work. So, but I think it's important as we move forward to understand that not just that connectivity on that straight line from Davidson to, we stopped at the park and ride in Cornelius, and then we got in the toll lanes and we were here in 30 minutes. But that 30-minute cycle that Brent was talking about earlier is so viable, because right now the Village Rider, that 30-minute cycle is an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. And that doesn't work for somebody that has to go to the doctor and needs to go to the grocery store or whatever the case may be. So this is going to be a good move in the future. I'm excited about it. We talked earlier today. I don't think the fare schedule is bothersome. I think there are going to be options for those that are negatively impacted financially from that increase in fare that we can deal with. But again, I think this is all part of a bigger picture of connectivity and how we get around. So I think this microtransit thing that we've been talking about for a while now, I'm glad to see that we're coming to fruition and getting ready to launch this. So thank you for your diligence on this.
Mayor Higdon.
Yes, it occurred to me, I mean, this might be part of your training, but is there going to be any expectation by these third-party vendors of getting a tip like you do on Uber or Lyft in addition to their fare?
No, they will take the fare. It's just like our normal transit service. If they're paying for cash, they pay $2.20. There's no
I would hope not, but I thought I'd ask the question anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, in the app you would pay for it just like a local trip, and you're just paying for the local bus fare.
Mayor Washam.
So just piling on some of Rusty's comments, I'm excited too. I think it's a great program and, can't happen soon enough. As far as the categories in which we could help folks afford this service, are we including does the lower income categories qualify some of the programs to cover that, or just seniors and disabled people and all that?
Yeah, so today, our current fare structure, we have discounted passes for senior, disabled, and students. So we don't currently have a structure for low income. We do have fare capping. If you reach the cost of a monthly pass within the course of a month, then every trip after that is no cost to the individual. We are doing a comprehensive fare study now, and we do believe as we go through that, discussions around how we bring low income into discounted passes will need to be a part of that conversation.
Okay, and one more follow-up to that as well. So you indicated that the Village Rider program will be transitioned out in June. So we've got roughly, I guess, January to June. And I guess my question is, what did you base that decision on as far as the transition time?
Well, the Village Riders have been around for probably close to 20 years. They've been there a long time. So you have customers who have probably been riding that for a very long time. It's part of their daily habit and daily routine. So having a transition period, we felt gives us the opportunity to work with those individuals if they're having issues with using the microtransit service, but also gives an opportunity to try it out, but also see, does it meet their needs and service better than, say, the current service?
Yeah, well, my question was, is it long enough?
Oh.
So Mayor Washam, let me assure you, so two things about any schedule change or service change. It would come to the MTC, right? A phase out is a service change, so that would come to the MTC. But I can assure you, we will not bring it to the MTC if we believe we are not ready to do that. We need to evaluate it. We think that because we only change the schedule 3 times a year, that's the next schedule change. If we feel like we're not ready, if we feel like we still need to continue fine-tuning how we implement microtransit, or we think that people need more training on how to use it, we would certainly delay that before we would bring it forward to this body.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Brent, I'd like to add, as I have in the past, we have the best product that nobody knows about. So I think messaging has to be crucial as we move forward in making sure people understand what we have to offer and how good it is.
Anybody else? Yes.
So I was thinking about your travel training program and thinking about the communities in Huntersville and around there that don't have English as a first language. Will there be programs and training and access in other languages other than?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We will turn to our, yes, sir.
I apologize through the chair. I've got a couple people online from Matthews that wanted to ask some questions about Mr. Cagle's report, and they were unable to participate.
Sure. Sure, we can cycle back. Let's give them that chance.
They've sent me the questions, or if you can recognize them. It's our town manager and one of our commissioners had a question. You want me to just read it?
Yeah, go ahead, that'd be fine.
Says, can staff prepare bus and rail ridership numbers to provide monthly numbers that compare current ridership with pre-pandemic numbers? Perhaps it's monthly ridership every month going back to 2019. And they also suggested if you want to skip the pandemic years, just do 19 and like 23 and 24. Would that be a possibility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That was all. That's the comment they had. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will turn to our action item and take up the second amended and restated transit governance interlocal agreement. Attorney Brad Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm pleased to report that we have reached the final step to have the amended interlocal agreement take effect. So we are asking tonight for the MTC to vote for that item. It's my understanding that the respective boards have taken action on the interlocal agreement. So This is the final step. You've got in your packet the staff summary of that. I'll just kind of highlight a few of the key changes. First, there's a new annual discretionary fund of $500,000, which the MTC may use to fund studies or commission reports related to CATS. There's an expanded role for the MTC in developing CATS budgets, an enhanced process for selecting and recommending the CATS CEO, and increased reporting requirements for the CATS CEO to the MTC, and a revised term for the agreement that'll go through at least June 30 of 2034. And there's also some administrative changes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Yes, Mr. Higdon, Mayor Higdon.
On page 73, with regards to the clauses regarding the $500,000 discretionary fund, there's a line that says, "The city, meaning Charlotte, will be the contracting party for all contracts funded to the discretionary fund. Thus, all such contracts may be subject to Charlotte City Council approval." Can you tell me which ones would be subject to city council approval and which wouldn't? Because may seems like a really squishy, not firm word.
Sure. So there's a threshold in place for certain contracts, and so if a contract, the city manager has authority at $499,000, that could be a factor. It also could be the type of contract that goes before city council. That could be a factor. So really, it would also apply to the city's procurement policy. But the city would be the contracting party with whatever vendor was chosen.
So my board in Matthews did not vote to approve this because of this language, because it doesn't address one of the key reasons we renegotiated the MOU, and that was that we voted in this body to do something, and then City Council, Charlotte City Council denied our request, and this seems to allow the same thing to happen again.
Other comments?
I've got one. If and when a new transit authority is formed and the MTC as it sits today is dissolved and absorbed into that entity, what happens to this, since it currently shows a sunset of 2034, I think it said somewhere in here. So that transit authority, if the legislation goes through, if a 1 cent sales tax gets passed, if we form a new transit authority that dissolves and absorbs the MTC, what happens to this interlocal agreement? Is it null and void at that time and an absolution where there's no indemnification for future concerns?
I think that's a really good question. I think that the draft legislation may contain language that, like you said, would dissolve the MTC. And I think we would need to look to see so the new sales tax would take effect for the new authority, right?
Right.
And then whether or not it captures the Article 43 sales tax would be another important piece. I believe it does capture the Article 43 sales tax, so the new transit authority, then it would have its own article of incorporation, it would have a charter, bylaws, and that structure then would govern the Article 43 sales tax like this interlocal agreement does, and then, of course, the new sales tax.
Well, I would assume that with dissolving MTC or absorbing MTC into this new program would also trigger the same level of, if we are contractually bound to vendors for nuts and bolts, just widgets, it doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Are those contracts going to transfer automatically, or do those contracts have to be renegotiated as well? And I don't know, Brent, I don't know whether this is something that we've even looked at.
I think it's neither. They wouldn't necessarily be renegotiated, but they wouldn't transfer automatically. They would be assigned. And so if there is a transit authority,
Right.
Day one, before there's even a transit authority board, I will say staff will be very, very, very busy looking at all of those agreements, doing a couple things, either assigning those agreements Or in some instances, it may be able to be, in effect, utilized in its existing form just by the third party, which in this case would be the authority. But the authority would be the contracting entity at that point, or at some point. And so those contracts, in general, would be assigned over for use by CATS and the authority, or whatever the transit system is called at that point.
All right. Yes, sir.
So, just a point of curiosity to Mayor Higdon's point. So is it a technical issue about Charlotte City Council approving, or is it an actual ability to veto? Like, I know we have the same thing, certain thresholds, council just, it's a technical process to bring the contract forward to be approved. But generally, they wouldn't deny the contract. So I just was curious if that.
So I think the only time that, this is a very comprehensive document with a lot of folks who looked at it. The threshold today between the city manager's authority and the city council's authority is $499,000 and $99,999. So in theory, if there was one contract requested for $500,000, that would require city council approval. If it was less than that, it would require approval, but that is a delegated approval to the city manager.
Thank you. You know, what Mr. Higdon?
Can we change this verbiage to $499,999?
I'm sorry. I didn't know. Change what?
Change less than 500,000 by $1, and then it wouldn't require city council approval?
Look, we would have to go back to every single board and renegotiate and repass, Mayor Higdon. I think what I want to say here is I would like to recognize the managers. It's been said before, but it needs to be said again. They worked hard. The city manager, the town managers, and the county manager labored in good faith for a very long time. And we have 15 pages, which is 50% red, indicating changes and updates. This contract, this updated interlocal agreement materially clarifies, confirms, and improves the powers and authority of this body. And so, you know, I mean, if you would like to put a motion on the floor, that's your prerogative, but you please recognize that it would, you know, not be feasible in terms of any action actually happening tonight to, you know, go forward in that manner. But I do think we've done the work and it's time to move on.
I'd like to put that motion forward.
Does he want to make a second? Hearing none, the motion dies for failure of a second.
I do have a follow-up question. What happens if a member doesn't vote for this?
So the interlocal agreement has a section in there for amending it, and it requires the city and the county and 3/4 of the towns for it to be amended. And so as long as that threshold is met, it can be amended and it will be effective.
My question is, if I don't vote for this, is Matthews going to get kicked off the MTC? Because I had a similar thing with Cartpo, and they said if I didn't vote for their memo, I would be removed as a member.
No.
Okay, good. Thank
John,
you.
we love you here. We wouldn't let you go.
All right.
All right. Yes, Mr. Lathrop.
Can I move approval?
Yes, may I hear a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. I'm sorry.
Ms. Oldman, I'm sorry. It would be better legally if Mr. Lathrop did not move approval or vote on this item.
Oh, that's true, because you're not a party to it.
Not a party
Yeah,
to the
that's true.
agreement.
All right, may I have a
I think I
motion?
heard Brad.
Thank you. Thank you. And may I hear a second? Second. Okay. All those in favor of the motion approving the second amended and restated transit governance interlocal agreement, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes. All right. We will turn to our second action item, Mint Hill SDS service. Ms. Sudi.
Good evening, everyone. Elizabeth Pursuti, Chief Administrative Officer for CATS. Tonight, I'm here to present to you, bringing forth a memorandum of understanding between CATS and the town of Mint Hill. CATS is for STS paratransit service. CATS is recommending an expansion of STS paratransit service into the Mint Hill community to provide some additional mobility options. For those of you that may not be familiar, our STS paratransit service is an ADA service that is required by FTA and primarily operates within a 3/4 mile buffer of our fixed route and bus and rail network. Through some recent analysis, CATS and Mint Hill have determined that an investment in additional transit service is justified in consideration of Mint Hill's ongoing contribution of sales tax funds to CATS. And so we would like to present the recommendation to add additional STS service into Mint Hill. We are looking to make that expansion in October of 2024, and it will provide some much-needed connections within the Mint Hill community. So would like to recommend to the MTC that they enter into an MOU with the town of Mint Hill to provide STS service within the community.
Thank you. And Mayor Simmons, would you like the floor?
No,
All right.
I'm going to do the same thing Brett was told to do.
All right.
Stay out of it.
Would anyone like
I had a
to,
dog in that fight.
anyone like to be heard?
I'd like to move for a motion to adopt the request for the MOU in Mint Hill.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, we do not.
Now I would like the floor.
Oh, okay.
And I would
It is
just like to
yours.
thank you for all of your work on this project. You reacted very quickly to it and took the citizens of Mint Hill's interest to heart, and we appreciate all the hard work that staff has done on this project.
Agree and thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We do not have a report tonight from TSAC or CTAG. So before I'll hear a motion to adjourn, are there any members who'd like to say anything before we close for the night? All right. I don't see anyone raising a hand, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are
Happy birthday,
adjourned.
Woody.
Happy birthday, Woody.
Birthday, Woody. Got me out in time. I love it.